They smiled because it was easier than confessing the truth. They wore warmth like a costume, stitched from threads of envy and silence, and while you laughed, trusted, and let your guard down, they were already writing the script of your downfall. Understand, this betrayal rarely walks in shouting. It tiptoes in, welled, rest, polite and patient. Not every smile is kindness. Some are just well-trained lies, waiting for the right moment to become knives. You were never naive, you were sincere, and they mistook that sincerity for weakness. But now you see it, don't you? The smile wasn't affection. It was strategy. The mask of politeness hides the sharpest blades. They didn't come at you with rage. No, that would have been too obvious, too honest. They came dressed in courtesy, wrapped in politeness, cloaked in charm. The ones who plotted against you didn't shout in anger. They whispered in agreement. They nodded when you spoke, praised you in public, and smiled like trusted allies. But behind that calm face was calculation. Behind every "I'm happy for you" was a silent resentment. You see, the most dangerous enemy is not the one who shows their teeth, but the one who hides the dagger behind a handshake. And you were raised to respect kindness. You believed in the goodness of others, so you missed the signs. You missed how their compliments were hollow, how their support came with strings, how their applause always sounded a second too late. You thought they were proud of you, but they were preparing your fall. They weren't smiling because they loved you, they were smiling because they needed you calm, blind, and trusting, until the moment they didn't. The mask they wore was not for you. It was for the world, to make you look like the one who imagined it all, while they stood polished and innocent. And isn't that the cruelest part? That their betrayal looked nothing like betrayal at all. It looked like support, like friendship, like loyalty. But every word they spoke was measured, every interaction rehearsed. Because they knew kindness disarms you, it softens your guard. So they fed you pleasantries while starving you of truth. They studied your habits, your emotions, your trust, and used them all against you. And when the damage was done, they still smiled, because the mask had become their face. And now you understand, not all smiles are sincere. Some are weapons, some are warnings, some are rehearsed scenes in a play you never agreed to join. But here's the twist they didn't expect. You saw it. Maybe not at first, maybe not when it would have saved you, but you see it now, and that's enough, because now their smile no longer disarms you, it exposes them. You've learned not to flinch at politeness, but to read beneath it. You've learned that true loyalty speaks without needing to perform. And most of all, you've learned that your kindness is a gift, not a weakness. You didn't lose because you trusted, they lost because they had to pretend. They wore a mask to meet your level, but you never needed one, and that's the difference they'll never outrun. Envy is the quiet architect of betrayal. They didn't hate you for your mistakes, they envied you for your strengths. It wasn't your failure that threatened them. It was your consistency, your light, your refusal to shrink. Envy is quiet. It doesn't scream in your face or declare itself in battles. It watches from the corners, pretending to cheer, while secretly counting your blessings like a jealous accountant. And the moment you rise even slightly, it begins its silent work. They plotted not because you did something wrong, but because you did something right. You walked into rooms without dimming your spirit, and that intimidated the ones who had long buried theirs. You tried to inspire them, but they saw it as a reminder of what they weren't becoming. And so the plotting didn't start with violence, it started with thoughts. Small, bitter thoughts. Why them? Why not me? And that bitterness didn't go away, it grew, and it learned how to smile. It learned how to say congratulations through clenched teeth. It learned how to show up for your wins while secretly rooting for your collapse. That's the terrifying thing about envy. It doesn't confront, it corrodes. It doesn't build storms. It drips like water on stone, eroding the foundation beneath you until suddenly everything cracks. And when it finally does, they act surprised. They act innocent because envy doesn't want to be seen. It wants to be justified, and when you fall, it pretends it had nothing to do with it. But you know better now. You've seen the way their energy changed the moment you no longer needed saving. You've noticed how they offered help only when you were losing, and distance when you were winning. Their support wasn't love, it was surveillance. Their questions weren't concern, they were calculations. And while you shared your vision, they were secretly measuring the size of your wings. They never celebrated your growth, they endured it. And when it became too much, they plotted. Quietly, carefully, with smiles and gestures and silence that felt safe. Until it wasn't. But don't let it break you. Let it reveal you. Because you're not the one who needs to shrink, they're the ones who need to heal. Their envy is not your burden. It's their battle, and your success. It's not a threat. It's a mirror. It reflects back everything they gave up on. And in that reflection, they saw not you but themselves. Diminished, and that, more than anything, is why they plotted. Because your rise reminded them of their fall. But don't stop. Don't dim. The louder your silence, the more their envy will echo. Let it. Let it shake their core while you keep building. Because nothing disturbs the insecure more than the peace of someone they try to break. Calculated niceness is a weapon. They didn't raise their voice. They didn't slam doors or throw threats. No, they were calm, composed, almost gentle. They offered compliments, extended favors, stayed close. But every word, every gesture, every pause was a part of something rehearsed. This wasn't kindness, it was strategy. A performance so polished it could win applause, but underneath it carried a quiet venom. Calculated niceness is the most deceptive weapon. It doesn't attack you directly, it weakens you with comfort. It makes you feel safe while slowly tightening the trap. You never saw them as dangerous because they didn't act like enemies. They didn't argue. They didn't compete. They smiled. They agreed. They acted as if they were on your side. And that's exactly how the damage began, because when the heart is unguarded, the betrayal cuts deeper. They studied your patterns, not to understand you, but to use you. They learned what made you trust, what made you open up, what made you relax. And they used it all to prepare the betrayal. You gave them your time, your energy, your loyalty. And in return, they gave you just enough warmth to keep you unaware. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't emotional confusion. It was deliberate. A slow poisoning under the mask of peace. They knew that loud cruelty could be seen, could be questioned, but soft deception. That's harder to explain. That's harder to prove. And that's the brilliance of their cruelty. They made it all look innocent. If you called it out, you looked paranoid. If you walked away, you looked cold. They kept their hands clean while you bled. That's what calculated niceness does. It leaves no fingerprints, just confusion. Just silence, but here's what they didn't prepare for your awakening. They thought the act would last forever. They thought their fake smiles would keep working. But one day, you stopped hearing their words and started watching their patterns. You stopped trusting the performance and started feeling the weight beneath it. And when you did, everything changed. The compliments sounded rehearsed. The support felt conditional. The closeness felt suffocating. And now, you see it clearly, their kindness was never love. It was leverage. Their loyalty was never real. It was a leash. But you've cut it now. You've stepped away, not in rage, in clarity, because nothing is more dangerous than someone who learns to read masks. And that's who you are now, someone who sees through the sugar-coated strategies, someone who knows that not every kind voice is kind-hearted. You've learned that real kindness doesn't manipulate, it doesn't monitor. It doesn't hide intentions behind polite smiles. Real kindness walks in truth, and from now on, so do you. The smile is the oldest disguise in human history since the beginning of time. The smile has served not just as a gesture of warmth, but as a shield, a distraction, a weapon. Long before the first betrayal was written in words, it was spoken through a smile. History is full of kings who smiled before declaring war, friends who smiled before the ultimate betrayal. and enemies who masked their hatred behind soft laughter. That's the terrifying truth. The human face can wear masks so convincingly that even the sharpest eyes are fooled. And when you think about those who plotted against you, you realize they never needed to lie directly. They only needed to smile at the right moment. Their expression did all the work. It made you feel safe, seen, accepted. But behind that expression lived motives you never suspected. The smile distracted you. It silenced your instincts. You told yourself they couldn't possibly mean harm, not with that tone, not with that gentle presence. But smiles don't reveal intentions, they conceal them. You weren't foolish for believing them. You were human. You trusted a language older than words. You read their face and hoped it was the truth. And that's what they counted on. That's why their betrayal cuts deeper than others, because it didn't come after a fight. It came after affection. It came from the ones who laughed with you, dined with you, asked you how you were not to care, but to collect data. You weren't just dealing with people. You were dealing with performances. Their smile was a tool, not of love, but of strategy, not of peace, but of positioning. And the more sincere you became, the more they refined their disguise. They didn't wear armor, they wore charm. And in doing so, they disarmed you. They convinced you that loyalty lived in expression. But you've learned that the smile is not proof of loyalty. It's not even proof of liking. It's just movement. Muscle memory, sometimes offered by those who are waiting for your fall, and now you carry a sharper discernment. You no longer judge intentions by facial expressions. You listen to the silence between words. You watch what they do when they're not being watched. Because real sincerity isn't in the smile, it's in the consistency. It's in how they speak of you when you're not in the room. It's in how they protect you when there's nothing to gain. The smile may still exist, but now you see it as a possibility, not a promise. And that shift, that awakening, has made you stronger. You no longer fear the ones who scowl. You fear the ones who grin too wide when nothing is funny. Because history has taught you the most dangerous face isn't angry. It's smiling. Your greatness was never meant to be celebrated by all. There's a painful truth. We all eventually learn not everyone will be happy for you. And they were never supposed to be. Your greatness, your growth, your glow, it doesn't sit well with everyone. Some people were only ever comfortable with the version of you that doubted yourself, that played small, that needed their approval. But the moment you started rising, not in arrogance, but in quiet purpose, they felt something shift, and they didn't like it, because your progress held up a mirror to their stagnation. Your light began to expose the shadows they'd been hiding in. And instead of rising with you, they plotted beneath you, not loudly, not publicly, but silently, strategically. They smiled through it, of course. They asked you how things were going. They said they were proud. But underneath, they were measuring the distance between where you were and where you'd left them. You see, some people don't want to grow with you. They want you to stay where they feel comfortable. Because as long as you were unsure of yourself, they felt superior. As long as you played small, they felt big. But the moment you started evolving, the moment you started moving forward, they didn't see your growth as inspiration. They saw it as a threat, so they masked their discomfort with fake encouragement. They wore support like a costume, but their energy betrayed them. Their conversations became shorter, their presence less frequent, and their smiles hollow, because deep down they resented that you chose to rise without permission, that you chose to heal, to chase purpose, to dream bigger than their approval. And when they realized they couldn't stop your growth, they tried to undermine it. Subtle comments, delayed applause, passive doubt wrapped in concern. They didn't celebrate you, they tolerated you, just enough to stay close, but not enough to truly stand with you. And that's where their plan began. Because if they couldn't join your level, they'd try to disturb your peace. But here's what they didn't expect: that you would notice, that you would detach, that you would grow anyway, that your greatness wasn't fed by their validation, but forged in your resilience. You don't need their applause to be powerful. You don't need their permission to evolve. Your path is not for their comfort, it's for your calling. And if your progress makes them uncomfortable, so be it. Let it shake them. Let it stir something in their soul. But don't dim your fire. Don't apologize for the way you've grown. Because some people were never meant to understand your journey. They were only meant to watch it from a distance. And the farther you go, the clearer that distance becomes.